I actually haven't done one of these question and answer sessions since Nemo was here. Yeah. And so you all have index cards, and some of you have been writing some questions that you have about unity, about the unity movement, about Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, about Unity Village, silent unity, whatever questions you may have for Unity of the Keys. And so as you write your questions on the card, Kevin's going to come around and collect them, and I will address them as best I can. So as we're doing that, just as a reminder, I brought a little 5 basic unity principle poster up here. You know, unity has our 5 basic unity principles where we affirm that number 1, there's one presence and one power, God the good, everywhere present. The kids' version is God is. The second is that presence of God is everywhere. Everywhere present, within me, within all people. So the second unity principle is I am. The third is I create my experience of this world by my thoughts. And that's one that I'm always a little cautious about, because we can do some blame and shame with that if we're not careful. Let me be very clear. Stuff happens. Stuff happens in this world. Not everything that occurs in our lives are things that we brought to us. What this principle is about is how we then hold and handle what happens in our lives. As I mentioned in a talk a few weeks ago, we're not responsible for our disease, we're responsible to our disease. We're not responsible for our accident, we're responsible to it, how we hold it, what we do with it. And those are the tools that we teach in Unity, is how to think differently, how to hold things differently, how to go from a higher perspective. And the fourth is I pray and I meditate. I spend time, I commit to time. I enjoy time in prayer and meditation, for we believe in the power of prayer. And then the fifth is, I act. I act. It's not enough to believe all these wonderful things about the world and then huddle in my room reading books. I need to be part of the solution. I need to be part of the energy, the law of circulation, the law of love, and be out there loving the heck out of the world. And so I must act. So that's just kind of a little preview there of our 5 basic principles. Kevin's got his basket if you'd like to send some cards up this way. I did prepare a few questions that I hear in my new membership classes, just in case we were short, but I don't think we're going to be short on questions this morning. I saw David furiously writing earlier on his card, and I'm like, you've been going to Unity twice as long as I have. You should be up here answering these questions. And he goes, well, not quite twice as long, almost, but not twice as long. It's only been 22 years for me. So. And there's always more to learn, there's always more to evolve, because that's what Unity is about. When I was at convention in June, I heard, we always hear that Unity is a practical path to spiritual living. Well, now the thought is to say a practical, progressive path to spiritual living. I like that as well. Come on. Stop asking questions. Get up here. Okay, I think I'll start with a card. Okay. Oh, which happens to be, what's a condensed version of Unity? A positive, progressive path to spiritual living, embodying the teachings of Jesus and others. That's something that we can feel very freely about adding to our description of Unity, that what we teach, what we attempt, each one of us, for we're all a work in progress, all of us, is to embody those teachings of Jesus and others. And I like to say we're culturally Christian, for our base is very much the Bible. We interpret it metaphysically. So we're culturally Christian and we're spiritually inclusive. We're spiritually inclusive. We don't think we have the corner on the market of religion or spirituality. Okay. A lot to get started. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is awesome, you guys. Thank you. Ooh, what is the healing affirmation that Myrtle used? The healing affirmation that Myrtle used is one that she heard by Eugene B. Weeks when she went to a lecture, where he said, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. And for someone like Myrtle, who'd been told from the time she was old enough to understand what was being said to her, she'd been told she was frail, that she inherited tuberculosis, and that she would not live a long life. So she grasped that affirmation. Some people think it's an affirmation she created. It's actually an affirmation she heard. Then she created a much longer, like 2-page affirmation for her body, where she blessed every organ, every cell, every function of her body, thanking it for its marvelous work, and asking for forgiveness for ever thinking it was less than perfect. How do I know the difference between God's will and my will? Ooh, that's a really tricky one. This is a really good one. Because God's will is something that puts up a flag for me. How do we always hear about God's will? Something terrible happens, or grandma dies. Well, that was God's will. It's never about something good, is it? It's always some catastrophe that was God's will. And so what we believe in Unity is that God's will for us is whatever that is in our highest and greatest good. Whatever is in our highest and greatest good. And so sometimes how I know that I'm being divinely guided versus my ego is when I spend time in the silence and I receive an impulse, an urge, direction to do something I don't want to do. Then I know that I'm being divinely, that's how I ended up being a minister. That was not my idea. Yeah. So sometimes we can tell the difference between our ego and what we want, and divinely guided by what the push may be or what the urge may be. So this is the gift of time in prayer and meditation, where we turn within and we allow ourselves just to ask the question, whatever it is. Should I do this or should I do that? Or maybe it's a third or fourth or fifth alternative, to open ourselves to the question and see what happens. And not only in the meditation, watch what happens the next few days. You will overhear conversations. You will see something on Facebook. You'll be standing in a line at the grocery store and read something on the front of a cover. Spirit is speaking to us all the time. And it's not only what we hear when we're in the quiet. When you spend time in meditation and you ask a question, watch for the answers. It will occur in your life. We only have to open our eyes and recognize it. So to the person that asked this question, did I adequately cover that? Yeah. Okay, good. What is the process of becoming a member? And what does membership look like? Expectations of volunteer time, etc. Well, as luck would have it, I'm doing a member class next Sunday. And that is what is required of membership, is that you attend a session with me. I've done some online. This one I'm doing in person next Sunday, following our hospitality time. And it will be about close to 2 hours, probably. And I talk about the basics of Unity, the history of Unity. I talk about the history of Unity of the Keys. And then it's up to each person whether they want to fill out an application. It's not an application. It is, in a way. According to our bylaws, the board has to put their stamp on it. So we do that. You fill out an application with your name and address and contact information and whatnot. And then you'll be inducted in a ceremony in a couple of weeks into the church. There's no financial anything. You don't commit to giving a specific amount of money. You don't commit to volunteering. What membership does, it allows you to vote at our annual meeting. so that you can vote on board members, you can participate, you can be a board member, you can serve on the finance team, you can be in a leadership role. I ask that all of the platform people, the platform leaders up here with me, that they are members of the church because they really represent in a very strong way, and they are all members of the church. So there's things that you can then be part of that maybe you can't, are, not so much now, but membership doesn't cost you anything, and it gives you a lot. And so, and the membership class I'm holding, come anyway. You don't have to join just because you went to the class. It's always up to you, always. We're not big on guilt and requirements in Unity. Recommended reading for people new to the movement, new to the Unity movement. We have a lending library. You can find Lessons in Truth by Emily Cady, which is fundamental unity. You can find the letters of Myrtle Fillmore, Healing Letters, I think is what the book is called now. Pass over Charles Fillmore for now. He's a little hard. He believed in comparing things to science. It's just his language is just a little bit more difficult for the time period. Go online to unity.org and read all the articles you can read. It's all free. Go to truthunity.net and you can actually download and read all of the Unity classics for free. It's a wonderful resource. Just go up to the search bar. The website itself is not quite as friendly as some others, but the information there is awesome. You'll find the entire Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. None of us have to lug that around anymore because it was about that thick. Wonderful resources. Oops. What is Unity's view on death? What happens to our soul? There's no one answer for that. Charles Fillmore didn't believe he was going to die. He truly thought he was going to live forever. He really did. What I share when I do a memorial service is that the soul is ongoing. The soul lives forever. That we are on one side of the veil, and those who have passed before us are on the other side of the veil, very thin veil. We can still talk to, we can still connect, we can still feel people on the other side of the veil. We don't hold that there's a heaven or a hell. We believe both can be right here, depending on our experience in this world and how we choose to live in this world. And so there's no danger that you're going to a bad place. But we believe that the soul is eternal. Reincarnation, perhaps. The Fillmores believed in reincarnation. I've had some personal deja vu experiences where I believe in reincarnation. But that's cannot be proven. These are wonderful questions. And here I was worrying. In Unity, we spend time in meditation. Should we pray then, or spend quiet time praying? Do you mean here, or do you mean at home? At home, absolutely. Prayer and meditation is absolutely what we... one of the 5 basic Unity principles, that there is value in spending time in prayer and meditation. And what's the difference? Prayer, you're talking. Meditation, you've now quieted your mind and you're allowing yourselves to listen. And there's no one right way to pray. There's no one right way to meditate. It's what works for you. It might be when you're walking that you're meditating. It might be when you're dancing, you're meditating. You might light a candle. Whatever process works for you. You don't have to sit in a certain position or hold your hands a certain way. But this is how we feed ourselves. Is that time in the quiet. We're allowing our divine nature. Remember, we're 100% human and 100% divine. We're allowing our divine nature to be fed and to allow it to feed us when we spend time in the quiet. And that was actually one of the questions that I wrote out. Is that people ask, well, what if I believe in all the rest, but I don't pray and meditate? And I'm like, well, then your life's going to be a little bit harder. You're going to have a harder time making decisions, maybe. you're missing out on a beautiful gift to yourself. How do I watch the news, read headlines, overhear political discussions with which I disagree, and use New Thought Unity principles? I'd like to stay informed on the ever-changing facts. Okay. I'm glad you used that word, facts. Yes. Facts are facts, and facts change. And truth does not. Truth does not change. So, a dear friend of mine, Russell Highland, Reverend Russell Highland, he says he uses the news as his prayer list. Now he knows what to hold in prayer for the week. Yes. And so there's that. I limit my exposure, but you can't really limit your exposure completely. And so I try to do the same thing. Open my heart to the pain. Send love to those that are experiencing war, conflict, death, loss. I do not allow myself to get wrapped around the axle about politics. I'm here to love everybody. We're all here to love everybody. And so to put politics in the mix, meaning political party, not political issues, because issues are issues, and some of those need our attention, and need our love, need our commitment, need our action. But political party, I just don't get wrapped up in the axle around it, because it's facts, and facts change. And we want to stay in the truth. So you use your unity principles of knowing we're all one, that we're all good. That's a hard one sometimes. God is good everywhere present. God is good in everyone. And so to not find yourself in a position of creating an enemy or against something. Who was it? Was it the Dalai Lama that said he would not go to or Mother Teresa, he would not go to a rally against anything. He would go for love. He would go for peace, but not against anything. What you resist persists. What does unity teach about not being a doormat, asserting my boundaries, versus allowing, accepting, and perhaps resenting? This can be a challenge when we say our job is to love, okay? Our job is to love, and it is. Your job is also to love yourself, to love and honor yourself, to respect yourself, and to be around people that love and honor you too, and support you, and not diminish you. And so, sometimes we make decisions on who we lovingly release from our life, blessing them on their way, because they're not good for us. And those are very hard decisions to make, especially with lifetime friends or longtime partners. But there does not need to be anguish or anger or resentment. The Resentment follows sacrifice. Anytime you feel like you've sacrificed, we're going to talk about that word next week a lot. Anytime you feel that you've sacrificed, there can be that resentment. And so to find resources, support from loved ones, not necessarily for what you may be about to do, but just for you, to love you no matter what. And then to put those boundaries up, to say no when it's no, so that you can live a life that is fully, or you can fully express the love that you are without fear and without feeling diminished or less than, because you are not. We are all children of the Most High. That one's a repeat. Our relationship with God has changed through the ages from a reward and punishment God to a more familiar and loving presence. Is it still changing? What is Unity's position on this relationship and presence? Wow. You get a panel of 10 Unity ministers and you'll get 10 different answers. There are Unity ministers who are not sure they're Christian. There are Unity ministers who won't use the word God. And we can see in the Bible this progress of going from, the Old Testament where, there was a lot of judgment and a jealous God and an angry God. And, many see this as our progress in humanity as we are growing, as we are maturing spiritually. Now we're seeing this loving God, this God that wants to love and support and express through us. And there are some who move beyond that, and we kind of heard it in the absolute word today, God as principle. God as principle, God as law. Well, there are many of us, and I am included in that, who still want to believe in a loving presence, a comforting presence. There's not a lot comforting about law or principle. And so it's very personal. It's very personal, and that's one of the things that I love about Unity is that we're not telling you how to believe or what to believe. We're telling you to form your own ideas about how to hold God essence, universal love, the divine presence, the universe. However you want to hold that. You don't have to use the word God. I do, but I often also go on and say divine love, universal love, the divine presence, whatever is going to fit for you, because many of us come to Unity wounded. We've been wounded from other religious experiences where we don't want anything shoved down our throat. That's one thing I can say about Unity. We are rebellious. We don't want anyone telling us what to do. Or like, Americans are that way. Americans don't want to be told what to do. Well, Unity is kind of like, Americans on caffeine or something. We do not want to be told what to do. And I love that we have that flexibility, that there are those that want to see God as principle, and there's nothing warm or fuzzy about God, and there are those that absolutely see God as this loving, endearing presence that we bask in and feel the warmth from, and it's all good. And it's all God. Oh, here we go. Same handwriting. God is all good, omnipresent. There is no evil. What am I experiencing then when I witness towns being destroyed, men shot on the battlefield, babies killed, women raped, etc.? Bad things. Just bad things. There is no separate and apart force of evil in this world. There is within us, because we're 100% human and 100% divine, our ability to choose. We have free will. And we may not be aware that God is present within us, and so there's a feeling of separation. And when there's a feeling of separation between man and the divine, the ego within man can make terrible, terrible choices. But the devil doesn't make them do it. Force of evil doesn't make them do it. It's only the sense of separation or not awareness of the good or the divine within. They've been told, they've been taught they're no good, they're bad, they're wrong, they're worthless. And their human side can only take so much of that. How does Unity movement feel about service to others? Is the Unity movement growing? Why? Yes or no? So I don't want to offend anyone. However, I heard this saying, and I'm going to share it with you. Unitarian Universalist, UU. I'm not going to blame them, but there's an interesting saying about unity and UU. That UU doesn't believe in anything and does everything. That unity believes in everything and doesn't do anything. And this can be true for many unity churches, absolutely. There's no edict from Unity headquarters or unity.org or Unity Worldwide that we're supposed to be involved in service work. What I can say about this church community is that we are. And that's one of the things I truly love about that, about this community. Because if we're just here for ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with, we want spiritual growth, we want to continue to progress and mature as humans. I mean, humans on this earth are still pretty new, and we're still kind of in the toddler stage, so we want that. But if we're just here for ourselves, this is a country club, this isn't a church. And thank goodness we are a church. We do have the voucher program where we send money to the thrift store when they reimburse the voucher so that people can get free things at the thrift store. And although I did notice our little food bank is empty out here, we'll work on that. And we collect through Easter time, the 40 days of Lent, the 40 days of giveaways where we collect food and clothing, and we donate to the Ebenezer group so that they can, have their yard sale in the back. And I love that. I love that we are conscious, aware of our community. It's an individual choice. There's a lot of autonomy within unity churches, a lot. You graduate, you get ordained, and they kind of shoo you out there. And so that's why you see so much difference between kind of the personalities of the different churches. Some will never quote from the Bible. I quote from the Bible almost every week, but that's just who I am. And I'm sure there's probably people in this community that when I reach for their Bible, they're like, oh no, she's doing it again. But that's who I am. That's who I am. I do my best to present the metaphysical interpretation of the passage so that we can look at it in a more personalized way. But that's who I am. And actually, when I was interviewing for churches, that was one of the questions that I asked them. They thought they were interviewing me. Was how Bible tolerant is your community? Because that's important to me. But it isn't everywhere, and that's okay too. Is the unity movement growing? I would say that right now, the unity movement is probably pretty much like almost every religious movement. We're feeling very much a stalling post-pandemic. We're getting our feet back underneath us. The unity movement is incredibly active in opening new ministries and ordaining ministers in Africa, I wish I could remember all the different ones I heard when I attended the graduation last month. We're still graduating ministers. However, some of our unity centers are closing, or they're giving up their buildings. I just learned that the one in North Arkansas that I thought had closed isn't closed. They just sold their building. And they're moving into a relationship with, this was Phil Smedstead. I talked to him last week. He's, for those of you who don't know, he was a minister here for several years. And he's serving a community up in Minnesota, I believe. And they sold their building, and they're partnering with, I think, a Presbyterian church, a large church, who also has a smaller congregation now, to share the building. They've got a huge parking lot, and I think that's brilliant. I've always thought churches were an awful waste of energy and space to not use it during the week. So having this sharing relationship, I think is awesome. Why? People just don't go to church like they used to. It doesn't hold the same. In my grandparents' day, the question wasn't, do you go to church? It's where do you go to church? Everyone went to church, I'm not worried about that. We're not worried about that at all. How does unity explain or relate violence and cruelty? Oh, here it is. I've heard it described immaturity or separation that causes so much suffering, and that's what we just talked about there. Did Myrtle have a healing affirmation that she repeated every day? If it would have been, I'm a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. But she had lots of them. She had lots of them. Look at Healing Letters by Myrtle. She's amazing, amazing woman. Are there more cards out there? Do you know, Kevin, if there's any more out there? Okay, well, I'm looking at the time. I think that we must be, you have one there, Sonny?
No, I've got empties if somebody needs.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm looking at the time. I see we need to move on. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Oh.